Hello and welcome to Books of Blood. My name is John, and today I'm going to be doing another installment in the Horror Across America series. I'm going to be focusing on 3 states with this video, and they're going to be Virginia, Washington, and West Virginia. So that being said, let's go ahead and get underway with Virginia. And the first one I want to talk about with Virginia is Whisper Down the Lane, and this is by Clay McLeod Chapman. A pulse-pounding, true crime-based horror novel inspired by the McMartin's preschool trial and satanic panic of the 80s. Richard doesn't have a past. For him, there is only the present, a new marriage, a first chance at fatherhood, and a quiet life as an art teacher in Virginia. Then the body of a ritualistically murdered rabbit appears on his school's playground along with a birthday card for him. But Richard hasn't celebrated his birthday since he was known as Sean. In the 1980s, Sean was 5 years old when his mother unwittingly led him to tell a lie about his teacher. When school administrators, cops, and therapists questioned him, he told another, and another, and another. Each was more outlandish than the last and fueled a moral panic that engulfed the nation and destroyed the lives of everyone around him. Now, 30 years later, someone is here to tell Richard that they know what Sean did. But who would even know that these two are one and the same? Whisper Down the Lane is a tense and compulsively readable exploration of a world primed by paranoia to believe the unbelievable. And that is Whisper Down the Lane, and that is by Clay McLeod Chapman. All right. Next up, we have got theme music, and this is by T. Marie Vanderlee. She didn't run from her dark past. She moved in. For the lucky among us, life is what you make of it. But for Dixie Wheeler, the theme music for her story was chosen by another long ago, on the day her father butchered her mother and brothers and then slashed a knife across his own throat. Only 1-year-old Dixie was spared, becoming infamously known as Baby Blue for the song left playing in the aftermath of the slaughter. 25 years later, Dixie is still desperate for a connection to the family she can't remember. So when her childhood home goes up for sale, Dixie sets aside all reason and moves in. But as the ghost of her family seemingly began to take up residence in the house that was once theirs, Dixie starts to question her sanity and wonders if the evil menacing her is that of her father or a demon of her own making. In order to make sense of her present, Dixie becomes determined to unravel the truth of her past and seeks out the detective who originally investigated the murders. But the more she learns, the more she opens up the uncomfortable possibility that the sins of her father may belong to another. As bodies begin to pile up around her, Dixie must find a way to expose the lunacy behind her family's massacre to save her few loved ones who were still alive and whatever scrap of sanity she has left. That is theme music, and that is by T. Marie Vanderlee. Okay, moving on for Virginia, we have got House of Leaves, and this is by Mark Z. Danielewski. Years ago, when House of Leaves was first being passed around, it was nothing more than a badly bundled heap of paper, parts of which would occasionally surface on the internet. No one could have anticipated the small but devoted following this terrifying story would soon command. Starting with an odd assortment of marginalized youth, musicians, tattoo artists, programmers, strippers, environmentalists, and adrenaline junkies, the book eventually made its way into the hands of older generations who not only found themselves in those strangely arranged pages, but also discovered a way back into the lives of their estranged children. Now this astonishing novel is made available in book form, complete with the original colored words, vertical footnotes, and second and third appendices. The story remains unchanged, focusing on a young family that moves into a small home on Ash Tree Lane where they discover something is terribly wrong. Their house is bigger on the inside than it is on the outside. Of course, neither Pulitzer Prize-winning photojournalist Will Navidson nor his companion Karen Green was prepared to face the consequences of that impossibility. until the day their two little children wandered off and their voices eerily began to return another story of creature darkness, of an ever-growing abyss behind a closet door, and of that unholy growl which soon enough would tear through their walls and consume all their dreams. And that is House of Leaves, and that is by Mark Z. Danielewski. Okay, next up we have got The Remaking, and this is by Clay McLeod Chapman. Inspired by a true story, this supernatural thriller for fans of horror and true crime follows a tale as it evolves every 20 years with terrifying results. In the 1930s, Ella Louise and her daughter Jessica are dragged from their home at the outskirts of Pilots Creek, Virginia, in the middle of the night. Ella Louise is accused of using her apothecary for witchcraft, and both are burned at the stake. Ella Louise's burial site is never found, but the little girl has the most famous grave in the South. A steel-reinforced coffin surrounded by a fence of interconnected white crosses. Some wonder, if the mother was the witch, why is Jessica's grave so tightly sealed? This question fuels a legend as their story is told around a campfire in the 1950s by a man forever marked by his boyhood encounters with Jessica. Decades later, a boy at that campfire will cast Amber Pendleton as Jessica in a 70s horror movie inspired by the witch girl of Pilots Creek. Amber's experiences on the set and its meta remake in the 90s will ripple through pop culture, ruining her life and career after she becomes the target of a witch hunt herself. Amber's best chance to break the cycle of horror comes when a true crime investigator tracks her down to interview her for his popular podcast. But will this final act of storytelling redeem her, or will it bring the story full circle, ready to be told once again? And again, and again. And that is The Remaking, and that is by Clay McLeod Chapman. Okay, next we have got The Siren and the Spectre, and this is by Jonathan Janz. When David Kane, a celebrated skeptic of the supernatural, is invited by an old friend to spend a month in the most haunted house in Virginia, he believes the case will be like any other. But the Alexander house is different. Built by a 1700s land baron to contain the madness and depravity of his eldest son, the house is plagued by shadows of the past and the lingering taint of bloodshed. David is haunted as well. For 22 years ago, he turned away the woman he loved as she took her life in sorrow. And David suspects she's followed him to the Alexander house. And that is The Siren and the Spectre, and that is by Jonathan Janz. Okay, next up we have got Bloodkin, and this is by Steve Rasnick Tim. A dark southern gothic vision of ghost, witchcraft, secret powers, snake handling, kudzu, malunguans, and the Great Depression. Michael Gibson has returned to the quiet home of his forebears and now takes care of his grandmother Sadie, old and sickly but with an important story to tell about growing up poor and Malunguan, a mixed-race group of mysterious origins. In the 1930s, while bedeviled by a snake-handling uncle and empathic powers she barely understands. In a field not far from the Gibson family home lies an iron-bound crate within a small shack buried 4 feet deep under kudzu vine. Michael somehow understands that hidden inside that crate is potentially his own death, his grandmother's death, and perhaps the deaths of everyone in this valley if he does not come to understand her story well enough. And that is Bloodkin, and that is by Steve Rasnick Tim. And that is going to do it for Virginia. So we are going to move into Washington. And the first one for Washington is Devolution. And this is by Max Brooks. As the ash and chaos from Mount Rainier's eruption swirled and finally settled, the story of the Green Loop Massacre has passed unnoticed, unexamined until now. The journals of resident Kate Holland, recovered from the town's bloody wreckage, capture a tale too harrowing and too earth-shattering in its implications to be forgotten. In these pages, Max Brooks brings Kate's extraordinary account to light for the first time, faithfully reproducing her words alongside his own extensive investigations into the massacre and the legendary beast behind it. Kate's is a tale of unexpected strength and resilience, of humanity's defiance in the face of a terrible predator's gaze, and inevitably of savagery and death. Yet it is also far more than that. Because if what Kate Holland saw in those days is real, then we must accept the impossible. We must accept that the creature known as Bigfoot walks among us, and that it is a beast of terrible strength and ferocity. Part survival narrative, part bloody horror tale, part scientific journey into the boundaries between truth and fiction. This is a Bigfoot story as only Max Brooks could chronicle it, and like none you've ever read before. And that is Devolution, and that is by Max Brooks. Alright, moving on, we have got Within These Walls, and this is by Anya Alborn. With his marriage on the rocks and his life in shambles, washed-up true crime writer Lucas Graham is desperate for a comeback, one more shot at the best-selling success he once enjoyed. His chance comes when he's promised exclusive access to death row inmate Jeffrey Halcomb, the notorious cult leader and mass murderer who's ready to break his silence after 30 years, who contacted Lucas personally from his maximum security cell. With nothing left to lose, Lucas leaves New York to live and work from the scene of the crime, a split-level farmhouse on a gray sanded beach in Washington state, whose foundation is steeped in the blood of Halcomb's diviners. Runaways who were drawn to his message of family, unity, and unconditional love. There, Lucas sets out to capture the real story of the departed faithful, except that he's not alone. For Jeffrey Halcomb promised his devout eternal life, and within these walls, they're far from dead. And that is Within These Walls, and that is by Anya Alborn. Okay, next we have got Wonderland, and this is by Jennifer Hillier. Welcome to Wonderland. By day it's a magical place boasting a certain retro charm. Excited children, hands sticky with cotton candy, run frenetically from the giant octopus ride to the spinning sombrero, while the tinkling carnival music of the giant Wonder Wheel, the oldest Ferris wheel in the Pacific Northwest, fills the air. But before daybreak, an eerie feeling descends. Maybe it's the Clown Museum, home to creepy wax replicas of movie stars and a massive collection of antique porcelain dolls. Or maybe it's the terrifying real House of Horrors, or the terrifyingly real House of Horrors. Or maybe it's the dead, decaying body left in the midway for all the wonder workers to see. Vanessa Castro's first day as Deputy Police Chief of Seaside, Washington is off to a bang. The unidentifiable homeless man rotting inside the tiny town's main tourist attraction is strange enough, but now a teenage employee whose defiant picture at the top of the Wonder Wheel went viral that same morning is missing. As the clues in those seemingly disparate crimes lead her down a mysterious shared path of missing persons that goes back decades, she suspects the seedy rumors surrounding the amusement park's dark history might just be true. She moved to Seaside to escape her own scandalous past, but has she brought her family to the center of an insidious killer's twisted game? Acclaimed author Jennifer Hillier's bone-chilling thriller is masterful and fast-paced, hurtling toward a shocking, bloody conclusion. And that is Wonderland, and that is by Jennifer Hillier. Alright, moving on, we have got The Last House on Needless Street, and this is by Catriona Ward. In a boarded-up house on a dead-end street at the edge of the wild Washington woods lives a family of 3. A teenage girl who isn't allowed outside, not after last time. A man who drinks alone in front of his TV trying to ignore the gaps in his memory. And a house cat who loves napping and reading the Bible. An unspeakable secret binds them together. But when a new neighbor moves in next door, what is buried out among the birch trees may come back to haunt them all. And that is The Last House on Needless Street, and that is by Catriona Ward. Okay. Next we have got The Good House, and this is by Tananarive Dew. The home that belonged to Angela Toussaint's late grandmother is so beloved that the townspeople in Sacagawea, Washington call it the Good House. But that all changes one summer when an unexpected tragedy takes place behind its closed doors, and the Toussaint's family, history, and future is dramatically transformed. Angela has not returned to the Good House since her son Corey died there 2 years ago, but now Angela is finally ready to return to her hometown and go beyond the grave to unearth the truth about Corey's death. Could it be related to a terrifying entity Angela's grandmother battled 7 decades ago? And what about the other senseless calamities that Sacagawea has seen in recent years? Has Angela's grandmother, an African-American woman reputed to have powers, put a curse on the entire community? A thrilling exploration of secrets, lies, and divine inspiration, The Good House will haunt readers long after its chilling conclusion. And that is The Good House, and that is by Tananarive Dew. Okay. All right, next up we have got The Easton Falls Massacre, and this is by, The Easton Falls Massacre, Bigfoot's Revenge by Holly Ray and Ryan Prentice Garcia. A mistaken identity. U.S. Army veteran Henry Miller embarks on a hunt at the edge of the Black Forest. Distracted by a personal matter, he strays from the path and finds himself too close to the East Cascade mountain range. Before he can turn around, he spots what he thinks is the biggest bear he's ever laid eyes on. Dreaming of bear stew and a soft bearskin rug, Henry raises his rifle. An ancient truce. Something lurks in the forest on the other side of those mountains, an ancient race of Bigfoot that have kept to themselves for centuries, until one of them defies the alliance and crosses the mountain range. Kelantsogi, a member of the Kwakiutl tribe tasked with keeping the alliance between man and beast, tries to warn both Bigfoot and man, but no one will listen. A town in trouble. When these two intersect, alliances are broken and events set in motion that will leave residents of the town of Easton Falls, Washington, fighting for their lives. And that is The Easton Falls Massacre, Bigfoot's Revenge, and that is by Holly Ray and Ryan Prentice Garcia. And that's going to do it for Washington. So now we are moving into West Virginia. And the first one I've got for West Virginia is Krampus, the Yule Lord, and this is by Brom. Santa Claus, my dear old friend, you are a thief, a traitor, a slanderer, a murderer, a liar, but worst of all, you are a mockery of everything for which I stood. You have sung your last ho, 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 for I am coming for your head. I am coming to take back what is mine, to take back Yuletide. The author and artist of The Child Thief returns with the modern, fabulous tale of Krampus, the Lord of Yule and the dark enemy of Santa Claus. One Christmas Eve in a small hollow in Boone County, West Virginia, struggling songwriter Jesse Walker witnesses a strange spectacle. 7 devilish figures chasing a man in a red suit toward a sleigh and 8 reindeer. When the reindeer leaps skyward, taking the sleigh, devilman, and Santa into the clouds, screams follow. Moments later, a large sack plummets back to earth, a magical sack that thrusts the down-on-his-luck singer into the clutches of the terrifying Yule Lord, Krampus. But the lines between good and evil become blurred as Jesse's new master reveals many dark secrets about the cherry-cheeked Santa Claus, including how half a millennium ago the jolly old saint imprisoned Krampus and usurped his magic. Now Santa's time is running short, for the Yule Lord is determined to have his retribution and reclaim Yuletide. If Jesse can survive this ancient feud, he might have the chance to redeem himself in his family's eyes, to save his own broken dreams, and to help bring the magic of Yule to the impoverished fold of Boone County. And that is Krampus, the Yule Lord, and that is by Brom. Okay, next up we have got Brother, and this is by Anya Alborn. Deep in the heart of Appalachia stands a crooked farmhouse miles from any road. The Morrows keep to themselves and has served them well so far. When girls go missing off the side of the highway, the cops don't knock on their door, which is a good thing, seeing as to what's buried in the Morrows' backyard. But 19-year-old Michael Morrow isn't like the rest of the family. He doesn't take pleasure in the screams that echo through the trees. Michael pines for normalcy, and he's sure that someday he'll see the world beyond West Virginia. When he meets Alice, a pretty girl working in a record shop in the small nearby town of Dahlia, he's immediately smitten. For a moment, he nearly forgets about the monster he's become. But his brother Rebel is all too eager to remind Michael of his place. And that is Brother by Anya Alborn. Okay. Alright, next up we have got The End Games, and this is by T. Michael Martin. John Green meets Stephen King in this original take on the zombie apocalypse by author T. Michael Martin, which ALA Booklist called the best of the undead bunch in a starred review. 17-year-old Michael and his 5-year-old brother Patrick have been battling monsters in the game for weeks. In the rural mountains of West Virginia, armed with only their rifle and their love for each other, the brothers follow instructions from the mysterious game master. They spend their days searching for survivors, their nights fighting endless hordes of bellows, creatures that roam the dark, roaring for flesh. And in this game, Michael and Patrick are very good, but the game is changing. The bellows are evolving. The game master is leading Michael and Patrick to other survivors who don't play by the rules, and the brothers will never be the same. T. Michael Martin's debut novel is a transcendent thriller filled with electrifying action, searing emotional insight, and unexpected romance. And that is The End Games, and that is by T. Michael Martin. Okay, next up we have got Took, and this is by Mary Downing HAHN. Folks say old Annie takes a girl and keeps her 50 years and lets her go and takes another one. 13-year-old Daniel Anderson doesn't believe Brody Mason's crazy stories about the ghost witch who lives up on Brewster's Hill with bloody bones, her man-eating razorback hog. He figures Brody's probably just trying to scare him since he's the new kid, a stuck-up snot from Connecticut. But Daniel's 7-year-old sister Erica has become more and more withdrawn, talking to her look-alike doll. When she disappears into the woods one day, he knows something is terribly wrong. Did the witch strike? Has Erica been took? And that is Took, and that is by Mary Downing HAHN. Okay. And the next book I am going to talk about is The Mothman Prophecies by John Keel. West Virginia, 1966. For 13 months, the town of Point Pleasant is gripped by a real-life nightmare that culminates in a tragedy that makes headlines around the world. Strange occurrences and sightings, including a bizarre winged apparition that becomes known as the Mothman, trouble this ordinary American community. Mysterious lights are seen moving across the sky. Domestic animals are found slaughtered and mutilated. And journalist John Keel, arriving to investigate the freakish events, soon finds himself an integral part of an eerie and unfathomable mystery. Translated into over 13 languages, John Keel's unsettling account of what he encountered in Point Pleasant has long been regarded as a classic in the literature of the unexplained. It is now the basis of a major motion picture starring Richard Gere and Laura Linney. And that is the Mothman Prophecies, and that is by John Keel. And that is going to do it for Virginia, Washington, and West Virginia. And once again, I apologize for the coughing fit. I will try to edit this out. I will try to edit that out. I'm not 100% sure how to do that, but if I can, I will. If not, again, I apologize. And until next time, this is actually the next to the last of the Horror Across America videos. I've got one more, and that is for the states of Wisconsin and Wyoming, and then I will be done. All right, so until next time, take care and stay scared. Thank you. Bye-bye.